this computer. All right, Sean, you're up first.
Yeah, just a few quick FYI items. Some of the backend security issues, because I know we had a lot for this release, and as Victor's saying later, we have a lot for next release as well. But some of these turned out to be either easier than expected, that we basically already do the thing. It just takes a little while, or not already fixed by something else, which is also great. So that helped a lot. We have a new backend engineer starting mid-January. Obviously, Heinrich joined, then Chantal left. So once this new person starts, we will actually be up a person. And just a reminder to contribute to the retrospective.
Great. I do have something to. I brought up a point. Maybe we can discuss it async, and if we have better ideas, we can discuss it later. Which is the feature flag thingy. And just knowing when those are out. So maybe Sean, if you already have like a quick answer to that, I left the comment.
So my understanding is that for most things, they should be behind a feature flag, but the feature flag should be on by default. So it should just be on when it's deployed, and we just turn it off. Now, there are riskier things where we think that there may be a serious performance impact where we would actually disable that feature flag before deploying it. Or we would default it to off. So the issue suggestions thing might be one of those, for instance, because we know that like, oh, hey, we're doing a bunch more API requests. We might want to check that before we, before we actually, we might want to turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off type thing.
Right.
But my understanding is that the idea behind adding feature flags isn't that we have to go and turn everything on each time, because that doesn't work for our customers. The idea is that it's on by default, but we have the opportunity to turn it off without reverting, building a package, deploying, etc.
Exactly. Okay. And so my only question there is, do we have a process right now? Because I don't want to ask engineers to do additional steps, but if they're already doing something, then I can poke in, which is, say, like the suggested issues thing. Where is the discussion happening that should not be on right away? And then where is the discussion happening like, oh, let's wait for RC, and then somebody will remember to turn it on? Like, where's that discussion happening that I can poke in on is my question.
So I would say that the way we should change this, if we change anything, is probably to say that if you are adding a feature flag that is default to off, or you are turning a feature flag off, you should have an issue to enable that feature flag, like Phil's created now. So if the feature flag is default on, then you don't need a follow-up issue, because like unless an incident happens and we need to disable it, then we'd create an issue. But if you have added one that is default off, then you need to create a follow-up issue, because for no other reason than anyone self-hosted won't get that until we make it default on.
Right. And then so that's fine. So this is let's then I'll just treat that as the process, and I'll ask people for that issue if I don't see it. But you are saying, Sean, that as the milestone for the issue is still like a promise that we will. I keep saying turn on.
It's not a promise.
Well, it's not a promise, but that's the current plan. That if we're shipping the feature.
If we're shipping it behind the flag, the intent is that by the
22nd.
Yeah, by the 22nd, it's on. So the idea, I think, maybe I'm confusing things too much, except for sort of backstage things, I would say pretty much every feature flag should be on by default, every new one that we add, certainly anyone for a feature. But you have the opportunity to disable it on GitLab.com before it's deployed.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Because when you use ChatOps, it doesn't care if the feature flag's already available or not. It will just say disable anything with this feature flag name, right?
Okay.
So default to on always. If you're going to disable it first because you have these concerns, then you should create that follow-up issue, because until that follow-up issue is done, we can't say this is shipped, really. And the
Well, yeah, no, there's two aspects. There's
And
the
and
clone and the refinish. Yeah.
you can add a feature behind a feature flag after the freeze. You can change a feature flag from default off to default on if you want to after the freeze.
Right,
Although,
right,
like I
right,
said,
right.
it's easier to just create a default on and then disable it. You can do that after the freeze. So that's the other aspect of this. But I think fundamentally the easy way to think about it is always add them as default on.
Right.
If you don't, you will have a good reason, we assume.
Exactly.
If you need to turn it off on GitLab.com before deploying it, i.e. so on GitLab.com it won't turn on automatically, then in that case, you should create a follow-up issue, and that should be on the same milestone so we can track it.
Right, right. And
does that make sense?
It does. And then we should socialize in that case. But like, so let me clarify or make sure I understand. So for the self-hosted version, what matters is what's shipping on the 22nd in the dot, like in the not the non-RC, the final version.
Yeah, the .0 release.
The .0 release, or I guess the dot whatever release. And so for that version, that will always have an issue there. We'll have a milestone on it, and that milestone will be, that's the planned milestone. So that's it, and we can expect that. Of course, that can always change. And so
yes,
what can happen is, for example, we find out on GitLab.com something terrible, then we just go back and change the milestone. I think that's totally fair. So from that perspective, the feature flag is almost transparent, or it doesn't really matter. It's orthogonal to the self-hosted case.
Exactly. For self-hosted.
Yeah. And so why I'm trying to separate it out and why that matters is, for example, that will impact the workflow of how I say prepare the blog post, right? So for the blog post, I obviously need to put stuff there that is planned to go out. And so that doesn't change, then that's fine. And it might, for example, it might be a little bit messier or harder to get screenshots because maybe it's not on GitLab.com right away, or maybe you have to, ping a developer, but that's totally fine. And so we can work around that. And then the other case is knowing when GitLab, it will be on GitLab.com, and that's just a nice to have. So I don't mind that it's a little bit more annoying for me, because there's like an extra step that I have to know. For example, for the cases where the feature flag is off, then I have to look at the other issue and then follow the conversation there. But I think so I can complain about that separately and have like a separate discussion about that. But as long as that's the process right now, I think that's totally good.
I have one question about this.
Yes, go again.
Last cycle, I created some backend feature destroying uploads on backend, on background, and I added a feature flag for this feature. The thing is that our document in handbook suggests ideally to scope feature flags to a project or group. And I wonder if it makes sense then to have them on by default, because I think that it either makes sense to create a global feature flag, which is by default on, but if I scope something to a specific project, it makes sense to have it by default off, because then typical scenario is that if something goes wrong, I can easily disable the feature. But if this feature is by default on and it's scoped to a project, I cannot easily disable it for all projects because it's scoped to one specific project, right?
So, sorry, Jan. So just so I'm clear, like as far as I was aware, the feature check, and it's been a while since I looked at this, the feature check only worked a percentage of the time or on or off. And it can take a project, but when it takes a project, that's just for a license check, I think. I thought the project wasn't actually used for anything.
Yeah, so I was following the comment I pasted in a chat, and I can set feature flag scoped to a specific project or group. Actually, it's suggested way. And once I do this, I think that it makes sense to have the feature flag by default off if I use a scoped feature flag, because it's a little bit weird to use a feature flag which is by default on, which is scoped to a specific project.
Right. Sorry, this was added since I last looked at it. I think I'm going to check my facts on that. But yeah, as far as I was aware before, we didn't have the option to scope it to a project. So
I mean, it makes perfect sense to have feature flags by default on, but only if they are global, I guess.
Yes, I agree. So maybe we should update that documentation. But yeah, I think for most cases, it doesn't matter too much. And then for some cases, it does matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder if we should suggest in the handbook that we should use scoped feature flags, actually, because I guess that in most cases it would be better to have a global feature flag, which is on by default, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Can you create a follow-up issue or merge request for that, please? Because I think we should update that. But
yeah,
from Victor's perspective, I think
I'm fine either way. Yeah, like
the question is like, how do I know when this is going to be like visible on GitLab?
Exactly. That's my concern. I'm not going to try to insert myself in this conversation because it's like when it goes live, it's too much in the weeds that the rest of the organization might have other opinions on anyways. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, and then like we're gonna do like, I'm sure we're gonna change like in a couple of months for like whenever we do more continuous delivery-ish stuff anyways. So I'm sure these are like stepping stones and building blocks to it. So yeah, for my purpose, probably the biggest impact for me day to day would be the just prepping the blog post. And that's pretty much it. So that to make my life a little bit easier. Yep. So that's that. Thank you, Sean, for typing up that impromptu discussion in the document. So number 3, roadmap given current capacity. So if you click on that, that's our standard roadmap. So what I did is sort of cheated, which is I pushed a lot of epics out further into the future. And because our roadmap view doesn't really let us go out too far into the future, and that's actually something that Annabelle is working on right now. What I did is I cheated a little bit, and just if you look at Q4 2019, all the epics are sort of just lumped there toward at the end. And the reason I did that is just so that we can have a view of all the epics. Because for example, if you look at the list view of epics, it doesn't show start date. So it's really hard to see epics. And I just want a view of all the stuff that is awesome and plan and that we want to do with some degree of confidence. But this is my somewhat more conservative estimate of when we can actually get to these things. And so given the amount of security features that security bugs that we've had to address and the ones that are upcoming, this is my estimate. So nothing actionable, just wanted to share that with people. And so relatedly, what I've done is I created a couple boards, or these boards have been around for a while. So security issues per milestone. So if you don't already know, or if the people in this call don't already know, we have a process. So if you Google GitLab security team handbook or something, you'll see their page in our handbook. And what it says is essentially the security team is responsible for assigning due dates to security issues. And then essentially I and Sean and Andre are responsible for scheduling the issues to meet the due date. And so we've been doing that for the past 2.5 milestones, I think, with pretty good success. So I'm pretty happy. Well, success in the sense that it's pretty obvious how to do that. It's like, it's just an algorithm, just the furthest milestone that meets the due date, right? That's the algorithm I've run in my brain. And then in 11.6, we've been able to finish all security issues and still do other work, so which is amazing. But this board, Planned Security Issues by Milestone, you can see for 11.7, we have 6 issues right now. For 11.8, we have 16, which is a lot. For 12.0, we have 8. And then for 12.1, 2, and 3, and 4, we have 0 because the security team puts severity up to S3. And then S3, the due date is such that it has to be done by 12.0 anyways, if you do the math. So at the current rate, I expect these security issues to continue at a similar pace, if not increase. And I read somewhere in Slack or somewhere that HackerOne, the organization we use, or the integration we use to input these security issues, will be, that company is going public or something like that. And so therefore, we expect more incoming security issues from the community. So this might even get worse before it gets better. So it's hard to predict. But that is...
There's also a bounty hunt, Victor.
Bounty hunt. Okay, so is that a separate thing on HackerOne, or is that just a separate integration or a separate program we're doing?
The only thing I heard was that there's a bounty hunt program happening around this time. I hadn't heard about the public thing. Maybe it's the same thing, just different.
Okay.
But we're expecting a little bit an increase in P1s, for example. So we're preparing some backup plan to have someone during the holidays for the front end, at least. I think the backend has as well.
If any P1s come up, right? Okay.
If anything comes up in any area, we'll have someone on call, so to speak, to be able to respond.
That makes sense.
Just on the 16 and 11.8, 5 of them are pretty much guaranteed to be the same thing, but we just decided to keep them as separate issues.
Right,
so
right.
That means there's only 12 instead of 15.
Okay, that makes sense. So basically, I don't know if this will get worse or better, but these are the steps we're doing to manage the problem. Manage in the sense, give visibility, be able to show people what is the impact of these things. So whether it's the roadmap or just having a list of security issues, stakeholders, people who make decisions above my pay grade can see these things. And I think it's our job as a plan team to make sure, and then of course, the folks on this call are doing a great job of squashing those bugs as quick as we can. But it's also our job to make sure people are aware that we're doing these things and also like the input. And so these tools are helping to accomplish that. So similarly, letter B in the bug issues per milestone, I also created that recently and moved bugs around so that we are essentially doing P2 and P3 bugs that are not in the backlog. So in particular, there's no P1 bugs for plan. And then the P2 bugs I've scheduled to be finished in 11.8. And then the rest are P3 bugs that we have many, including stuff in the backlog. So I haven't touched anything in the backlog, but I've just taken the P3 bugs that were already scheduled in certain milestones and moved them such that, I moved them later than say like a P2 bug and just made sure that it was a little bit more sensible. So feel free to look in and start a discussion if we need to do more or less. But again, this is a way to bring a little bit more sanity to the process. And then so another thing to note is that our boards are not super awesome yet, so there's overlap. So there's security things in this particular board as well. So sort of just ignore those because those are already covered. And then there's a headcount planning sheet. So I'm purposely not sharing my screen either because some of these things we can't share publicly. But the headcount planning sheet, go ahead and click on that. And so that's our very ambitious goal to hire more folks to do more awesome work that's in our vision, essentially. So we went through this exercise, I think, in the past couple of weeks. Some of the executives did so, and then sort of just trickled down to myself and Andre and Sean. I think, Sean, you were away, so I pinged Yan and Brett, and they were very helpful. So thank you. I think I pinged Mario, sorry. So I think I should have pinged Brett for that one. So in any case, they reviewed this, and so why I wanted to bring this up is that it seems sort of like ridiculous that our roadmap goes, like, if you were to look at all the epics and all the things that we're doing, given the current capacity, it would like take us 2.5 years to do, if like by my estimate. So that sort of seems silly, right? So, but the idea is that GitLab, we want to grow as quickly as we can. And so if you look at this spreadsheet, this is a way for the team at GitLab to communicate to our investors, their board of directors essentially, to convince them like, this is an amazing vision. We want to do all these things. Thus, we need to hire more people. Does it make sense? So on and so forth. And we can't just say that, right? Because, we could, but we're a big organization. We're doing a lot of things. So we have to, put some numbers together. Yes, a lot of these are really rough estimates, but nonetheless, we need to do an exercise so that it's not just pulling crazy numbers out of the air. There's actually some logic and some sanity to this. And so that's the purpose of this spreadsheet. And I just wanted to share it on this call because, everybody at GitLab should be able to see these things. And as the spreadsheet is public within GitLab, you can do so. And in particular, if you click on some of the details for plan, for example, you'll see pretty large numbers. And in particular, you will see that the numbers are so large that it wouldn't make sense that we continue to be one team. So it would make sense that at some point,
just one group.
Go ahead.
One group, teams, people who report to a manager.
Oh, okay, yeah. So one group, yeah. So I have to change that language because it's incorrect. So yeah, so the plan group will become multiple groups at some point. I don't know when and how and stuff like that, especially since I'm not very much involved in the hiring anyways. But that's coming down. So if you look at, I think I'm just looking at a spreadsheet right now. I'm just trying to see. There's like a tab that says Plan A and Plan B, so I have no idea what those are. But there's one that's really colorful, so maybe we should be looking at that one. Where is that? I think the first one.
Yeah, because you're not sharing your screen, I don't know what we're looking at.
Yeah, no, I don't know either. I'm just clicking around the tabs. There's a
product development headcount. It's only one.
Yeah. So there's one with colors. So I suppose that's important because there's colors.
Yeah.
But you can see there's a number there. So
there's a product development headcount sheet. It has the end of year count in 2018 and
right
end of year 2019.
Right. Yep. You're totally right. Thanks, Andre. So it's pretty much twice for us. And then you can see like I think 47 is like, so yeah, security is huge because that's like a ginormous market, and the customers are really resonating with security, and so it's sort of obvious given this day and age why security is a big deal. So we from my understanding in talking with my peers, we underestimated that market, and so we're trying to catch up. But plan is no slouch from the perspective of there's a lot of stuff we can do, and that we want to do, and it's already in our vision. So that's that. And then if no questions, comments there. Oh, okay, Andre, you added something, so I'll go faster. Metrics, so something that, as a program manager, I should be doing a better job of, at least just, showing what we have. So if everybody at GitLab should be able to get a Looker account and access these dashboards. So if you click on that link, you can see those dashboards. And if you're really, really too lazy to get a account on Looker, I'm going to try to update that doc. So for AI, and so you can see, I'll just take screenshots of our dashboards. And the reason I'll do that is probably because I want to advertise these things more broadly within GitLab, and the more broad you can go, it's even less expecting people will be able to get an account. No problem, yeah, and if you need to leave, you have to leave. So anyways, so those are usage ping things. And the other thing is with Snowplow front end, so the managed team has been putting together the Snowplow framework. So I'm pretty sure that that's ready to go. So that's why I've created at least 2 issues, and I think there's 3 planned issues, but 2 I've scheduled already to measure how many times people are clicking the export CSV and import CSV functionality for GitLab. So I think that's like a great first place. I couldn't think of anything that's easier or sort of somewhat useful. And there's also some metrics in general. There's a bazillion ways to use it. And so one approach is that we just log everything and sort of look at it afterward. We can do that, but if we log everything, it's also work to log everything. So I have no idea how easy or hard it is to log everything. So letter B, importing CSV and exporting CSV is sort of my way to say, okay, let's just work on that first. Let's get the team comfortable with this, and maybe afterward, we as a plan team can say, oh, this was actually pretty easy. Let's do more logging. And so we can do that. But for now, let's find one thing to log. And so I proposed the CSV one. No other comments, questions? Andre, you're up.
Okay, thanks, Victor. So yeah, I added a point there just to highlight something. Since me and Sean, we haven't had a lot of opportunity to sync up over the next couple of days because you're off, I just wanted to raise this now that there's an issue for 11.7 that we have been discussed about fixing the task lists. And I know there was some proposals over there to how to fix that. But since we're now using this system that you pick whatever's next in the pile, there is a chance of us having this situation where the front end or the back end picks it up and then the other part doesn't have availability. So I just wanted to raise this as a potential risk that we need to have both ends available, and how should we tackle this for future purposes?
Well, yeah, so first of all, thanks for bringing it up and for adding the backend label. So I think the most important parts of this can be done mostly separately. So in my last comment, I wrote like what we want from the back end for this. So like, I think my assumption is, and like obviously once people start working on this, they can correct me, but my assumption is that, okay, let me go back a second. The way this works right now, when you check a box on a task list, is the front end just, and I'm not even sure if it's something we wrote or something that comes in with the library that does this, but it takes the entire raw markdown text of the issue or comment or whatever. It adds the X in between the two square brackets, and it updates the issue description to be that, which is why when I click one box and you click another box, we can overwrite each other because I'm just sending the entire description. Ideally, we would have some way of giving a particular checkbox item an address or something like that. So we could just say, check this box. Because if we can say, check this box, it doesn't matter what order these two things happen in. Because if I check box A and then check box B, the result should be the same. Obviously, if I check box A twice, then that's slightly different, but you know, we can worry about that separately. So from the back end perspective, I sort of wrote out that I want it to be possible to reorder it, even if we don't like necessarily allow that straight away. Like I want it to be so that we can reorder those and retry one if it fails because another one was happening at the same time. Like without having to ask the user to retry, we can just automatically retry it. So that it's like transparent to the user. So when I say retry, I mean from a backend perspective, like the user wouldn't see anything, it would just take a tiny amount longer. And it should also be much faster. So one of the reasons this can be really slow right now is because, like I said, we update the entire body, which means that we have to render the entire markdown back to HTML, and particularly on our QA issues that we automatically generate for releases, we use a lot of references in there. So we use a lot of user references and all the label references, and those take a long time to calculate and process. Yeah, and you end up with a lot of HTML at the end of it as well, which like the front end doesn't need. The back end doesn't really need to generate. It could just say like in the HTML, this box is now checked. So I think that part can mostly be decoupled from the front end part, but obviously they would need to coordinate. But like those properties should hold like no matter how we resolve it. Having said that, Now that the backend item has been added to this, this is the second top item on the open list for backend engineers. The only item above it is a security issue that may or may not actually need a fix, because it may already be fixed. So someone should be able to get to that soon. I might ask Brett to take a look at it, because he is the Markdown expert, and he might have some ideas. But yeah, someone will be taking this shortly from the back-end perspective, and as long as someone from the front-end team is ready to be unblocked, I think we should be okay. Yeah. I think when this gets trickier is when it's like halfway down the list, and then like that's when it's harder.
Yeah, that's because we had security issues, so I wasn't sure how the situation was. But what I told my people was that, hey, whenever you pick this up, raise this on the channel to make sure that we have a backend soon picking it up, so at least there's visibility. It'd be great if the other thing happened as well. So if the backend picks it up first, just raise that on the channel so that we can then assign the front end who's more available than the then. But yeah, apart from the specific solution, my only question is about the retrying mechanism, but we can discuss that off call. It doesn't have to be here.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is not that we should implement retrying initially, just that we could. Like the idea is that should be an option. Like, you know, instead of just like, because it's super frustrating when you try and do it and then it's like, oh, someone else edited it, like try again.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around. So if it failed, it's because like the body that I had is outdated, but the only information I have is you click that. Actually, I don't have any information, I think, or maybe it does. Anyway, we can check that later. But yeah, of course, we try to use a possibility, but the other part is what the problem is actually about. So anyway, we can sync that up later or when someone picks it up. I weight that issue in terms of front end. The weight that is there is 5 for front end. So if you want to put the back end, just let me know and I can create a spin-off issue for front end, or you create that for back end, whatever you prefer.
Well, when we did the weights, we already ended up overweight because of the whole ambitious scheduling thing. So really what this does is it just pushes something at the bottom to be much less likely to be done. But I think we don't particularly care about where that cutoff point is, right, Victor?
Yeah, no, to build on that, Sean, I don't care. Like, I think in this new world, I care about order of things that we're doing, and then the fact that this isn't super scalable and it's manual, Andre, that you have to talk with Sean, or somebody has to get on Slack. Like I don't mind it. Obviously, I'm not doing anything. You folks are doing all the work. So if you folks don't mind it, and like there's only like a handful of these happening per month, I'm still super happy. To me, it's not. It's like we're working remote. This is a cost of things, how we do things, and in the future we have GraphQL, and it's super awesome, right? But before we get to that, there's always going to be issues that require cross collaboration. If it takes a little bit longer, I think that's fine, and if it delays a whole milestone, I think that's fine. But what I would ask for you and Sean is to be, if you see an opportunity to say like, let's actually not do this now and knock out something later down the list that is a lot smaller and we could do it really quickly, I would ask you to just do it, and then don't even ask for permission, just say it, and then just tell the team on Slack that you've adjusted the priorities because it makes sense. Something like that. I think that makes sense. But in this particular case, what you just, like, we had this conversation in this video call for 10 minutes, and it seems like both you and Sean have resolved it. And so to me, it worked beautifully. So that's my
I think keeping it this priority is a good idea, because it's super annoying in the QA issues, basically.
Yeah, the old way was we had to pre-plan for a milestone and say like, we're going to have, Felipe work with Kushal on this, and then like that's even more mess to coordinate, right? This is on-demand coordination, which I think is a lot easier, right? So.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Victor. We'll do that. So if I go to the next point, so I'll give you an intro, and then I'll explain what this is about. So this is more for UX, so Pedro and Annabelle. Just me and Tim and the front end team, we were moved away from the spreadsheets and we jumped on board full on with the issue boards. although we are a little frustrated with some features that are lacking, and they're planned, so there's nothing completely mind-blowing here, more about like the swim lanes, that sort of thing, having that sort of visibility. And since it's not there, so Tim hacked a little script using Tamper Monkey to improve a little bit of the issue board. And I just wanted to demo it for you just so that you could visualize how it's looking for us right now. Again, it's not perfect. It's not amazing. It's very specific to our case because it's overloading the meaning of the in-dev and in-review labels, having that exposed visually. But I think it's useful for us to have a look. However, I'm doing it with my account and it does have confidential issues on it, and we're recording the call. So is it a possibility to end the recording here and me doing the demo without recording?
Could you log out and then still use the script?
Yeah,
let me have a look.
Because if you log out, you should be able to see confidential issues.
Well, it depends on what the script that he wrote.
Right, yeah. Like you said, it's not perfect, so...
Yeah, exactly. So I've signed out.
Either way's fine, Andre. Do you want me to stop recording? I can. Or whatever.
Wait, give me a second. No,
okay.
It's fine. It works. Signed up. Amazing. All right. So
you have less work when you're signed out.
Okay, so let me just share my screen then. There we go. So basically, the changes so this is basically a script that we added via Tamper Monkey, an extension. So it runs some JavaScript after the page is loaded, after things have been loaded. And all it's doing is basically giving some borders on the left of each card to highlight the state. Now, he told me what the meaning of these labels were. I think, let me just have a look. Oh, why is this not, right? I'm trying to find one green. I know that there's a green one. Anyway, right, there we go. So these ones are the ones that are done, right? That's for us to understand which one. Of course, this list closed basically defeats that goal, but the other colors basically talk about assignees, about states of in development or in review, and that sort of thing. So it does this for every board, although it does have very specific meaning for us. On top of that, it kind of summarizes a count. So after it's done its thing, it's able to tell that we have 52 issues open, 13 in dev, 5 in review, and 8 have been done. So this is more of just a thing for us because we missed this from the spreadsheet to have a good, clear look as an individual, as we have assignees lists. It's good for us to have a look and see, okay, how many does Winnie have open, which ones he has in review, and so it's very useful to have this in a way of managing the team. But again, it's just a little demo for you.
This is really cool. So you're actually using this on the front end teams right now, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So you just created this week because we have a kickoff on Friday, and we're going to use this board to do like a sharing of the whole team.
Right.
And we're going to basically improve this just so that we have sort of the same thing we had on the spreadsheet. And right now, again, this is using production, so it's just as things are loaded, the script runs. So it's not just CSS; it has JavaScript on top to calculate a bunch of things, but it's not messing with any other stuff in production. It's just like a little layer on top of things.
It's great. I like it. I think this is definitely share this somehow in some issue, and then we should definitely include this in the designs.
Yeah, I think if you put it in a snippet so other people can use it, that would be awesome.
It's actually in a repository that Tim wrote, so I can definitely I'll open an issue or something and dump the script there so that you can have a link to point to and discuss even, and then even we can come in and explain a little bit more about these colors. I know that one is assignees, the other is colors, the other is in dev and rev.
Okay, I'm just sorry, repeating my comment here because obviously it won't be in the recording. The colors to me look like swim lanes. So they're not swim lanes, but if you imagine everything red was in one row, or multiple rows, but like, one group of rows. Everything green was in another group of rows. Everything blue was in another group of rows. That's basically swim lanes, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. Yeah.
And
but this is
a
different.
When I thought that is like, if we did swim lanes like that, that would be a really inefficient use of space because there's already a bunch of blank space on this as you scroll.
Right, exactly.
Anyway. And we're talking about collapsing lists. I wonder if we should automatically collapse a list that doesn't have anything in it.
that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
No, but like, no, I totally echo Sean's point. This is swim lanes, and I don't know the answer to this, so I'm just gonna throw it to Pedro. I don't know if you have an answer to this already, Pedro, whether you like this version of swim lanes where it's not swim lanes, I guess, but like it's scrunched swim lanes, and which is essentially saving a lot of space.
It's a different approach to swim lanes. I think it has. It's like both approaches have their pros and
right.
cons. But I really like is what you were saying, Andre. Once you know what the colors mean, it works, right? So it's really good that it's working for you and you've made this. The only question I have is, so the for example, the blue ones, the one that have blue on the left, those mean like in development or something like that?
Yeah, I thought it was in development. I'm trying to see.
So my specific question is, do you remove the label and just add the color on the left? Because I don't see.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. Is there integration with the actual label? Probably not, right?
Yes, I forgot to mention that, but he was filtering a bunch of labels. So the point is, this is for front end specific. So what he did is he only shows a certain labels that might make sense for us, and he discards all the rest. Yes, it is very specific for us. In this case, it wouldn't happen. But to your point, Pedro, even me, I still have a bit of confusion between what the colors mean. But that could be easily solved if we had the name of the state, like rotate,
on hover,
on hover or something. But the point is that this is sort of a shortcut for the swim lanes because we didn't want to mess with moving things from space. We just like kind of change the visuals of the card themselves as a shortcut.
And my last question: what do you know what the yellow cards mean?
The shade.
Yeah.
Trying to think back to our spreadsheet.
Is it like blocked or no?
I know that we have something that if it doesn't have the deliverable label, it will be highlighted in some way. I think that's it. I think it's missing the deliverable label only, even though we can't see it here because it's probably filtered. But I think that's what it means. Yeah, I think that I didn't put it here.
Yeah, this is really cool. Thank you for sharing.
I'll create the issue and just put the link there for you guys to play around and use them yourself if you want to play a little bit. For now, again, it's very specific to front end case. I really like the specific count, which could be at the bottom of the screen or something, like a summary of the whole board of certain special labels. The question is, how can we make this so generic that it makes sense for all the cases? Because right now, this is just a label, right? This is just a label. This is a state. This is a state. So how do we really make this usable for everyone without making too specific? But
we definitely have the workflow concept in scope, Andre, somewhere in our
work. I know. Yeah.
So that's what this reminds me of, and then like however the board will absorb that is more like a visual design, but like in terms of like the architecture, that's I see this being like not labels, it will be actual native states.
Yeah, that could be the other approach, which is like here you're putting like assignees as columns. We can also do the other way around, which is to have the workflow stages or whatever you want to call them as the columns, and then the assignees as swim lanes or whatever you want. And then you can have these counts at the top of each column. So you'll see X number of open with X number of wait in the review and done, while still being able to just see groups of issues per assignee. But that's again, that's another approach.
And it depends on the perspective of the board. Like in this case, this board is to manage the whole team. If you were managing a group, it would probably be different. But one of the things that I liked in this was that every little tweak that he did, except from the filtering of the labels, is on our roadmap. And we have ideas and we have been discussing them. So it's not that we're not aware of them. It's just that we haven't gotten to them yet. And that is good, a good sign. I think we're doing our job okay for the future of this. So good job, team, group, right? Group.
Group.
Okay, I'll stop sharing now. I'll create the issue and I'll update this agenda to have the issue link there, and I'll share it on the Slack channel as well once I have it there. That's it. I don't have anything else.
All right, thanks, Andre. So I think that's it, right?
Sean is writing something down. Okay, team versus group.
Is this something somebody?
Yeah, I was just adding a link to discussion there.
Is Dylan in the same group as Fabio? Because Fabio brought this up, for example.
Dylan as corresponding product manager is Daniel, I think.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, it just came up. I don't know if they shared this, but it just came up separately. I don't know if it was in the same source. Anyways, let's not use that word. That's incorrect. All right, that's all I have. If nothing else, we can end the call.
By the way, I just wanted to mention, you probably see Rajat there on the call. He already started. He's onboarding this month, and he will be joining the deliverables next cycle. Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Well, welcome to.
As you can see, he's excited to learn about us, so he did join the call as well.
Yeah, I did notice him earlier on the call. Looking up in Slack. Awesome.
Cool. All right.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Good to see you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.